your foundation and how people can help and what the future holds and where it's at right now, and maybe are you accepting horses and what kind of volunteers are you looking for?
Well, we're accepting checks. And in fact, when you go outside, not that there's any pressure, but there's a book signing for the book that goes with this film, but also the book that came before it, which is a book that I wrote called The Healing Land. I'm selling those, and actually all the money from that goes to the Horseboy Foundation. What we do basically is we bring together autistic kids or kids on the spectrum and their families, their non-autistic siblings, with horses and nature who might not otherwise have access to it. So we get the wards of the state of Texas and so on, and those people, as well as local families. So that's what we do. And there isn't really a program as such. We tend to stand, one thing that I really did learn with Betsy was to stand back a little bit and watch what the horse and the child seem to want to work out together and take it from there. So I try to do that when my massive, out-of-control ego allows me. But it's a wonderful place, and it's in Elgin, and we have one full-time and then a bunch of very good volunteers, and we're slowly growing. We're now doing these horseboy camps where we're trying to kind of recreate to some degree the Mongolia experience under canvas, horses picketed, sleeping on the ground, something of a journey every day. And we've seen consistently kids who are non-verbal giving speech over the course of those few days. So I guess we'll just persist with it.
Do you recommend a journey such as the one you took to Mongolia for families dealing with autism? Is that the key? Can the journey here?
Well, put it this way, I think that you follow the interests of the child. So it was not my idea to put Roan up on Betsy. I had stopped riding because I thought that Roan was unsafe for animals, as Roan took himself to Betsy repeatedly before the penny really dropped with me. So if Roan's interest had been steam trains, this film would have been about a journey maybe across India by steam train or something like that. But I think that the key is following the kid, and particularly when a child is non-verbal. The only way that they can show you where they want to be or what they want to do is physically. So you learn a different kind of listening.
And with autism in particular, you're often advised to keep a very strict routine, keep things very stable, and there's a way in which that helps the child adjust. But I think one of the downsides of that is you do stop having adventures and having fun as a family. And I suppose, I mean, I can say that Mongolia was painful. It was difficult, but the rewards were so great, and that maybe sometimes parents need to feel it's okay to take some risks and go on an adventure. Maybe it will be difficult, but what you get back in return may be really worth it, even if it's not easy. So I would say yes, give it a try.
Kristin, have you become more of a believer?
Yes and no. So equivocal. You know, put it this way, I've been doing a shamanic journey every summer. We just did our third one now, and it does, something is happening there that seems to be working. How to explain that, whether it's some sort of gram placebo effect or what it is, I can't say. I really love, I've actually come to really enjoy holding it as a mystery. There's something about, maybe especially because I'm scientific, that being able to just say, well, you know, I don't know, but I'm doing it anyway, and something's happening, and there's something very beautiful in that. And I almost don't want to sully that beautiful mystery by saying I believe it's this or I don't believe it's that. It just is what it is, and I'm following the adventure. So did I get out of that one well enough?
You know, what she asked was what advice would we give to teachers who are dealing with kids on the spectrum and so. Do you want to take that?
Maybe just to say there has been a shift in how people approach autism. Some of your educators will know what ABA means, but the dominant paradigm here was behavioral analysis, which is really using rewards to shape the child's behavior. And it used to be, I think, more hardcore, more trying to control the child. And I think you're seeing a shift now, which I would wholeheartedly agree with. And instead of trying to control the child and make them behave the way you want them to, really making it much more play-based, following the child's interests, making it fun. really respecting and valuing the child, because there are amazing gifts associated with autism. So many of these kids are so sweet and wonderful, and you can learn so much from them. And I think instead of approaching the child as this problem child that you're trying to fix, not that you would, but I think there's kind of that mindset in society, really trying to see what does this child have to teach us, and how can we play with the child and follow their interests and see what they're having to show us, and approaching the child that way. And often the other kids pick up on that energy. Is this a weird child that we need to kind of manage in the classroom, or is this a child that's really cool and interesting that we can learn from? And I think that shift in mindset can make a big difference.
Based on your experience and research, have y'all taken a stance on the precipitating factors of autism?
On the what?
On the precipitating factors, the causes of...
Yeah, I don't think we've taken a stance. I do think, and this is, when he first got diagnosed, I was able to look at scientific literature as much as I could to try to get a handle on what we know. And I really think the field is approaching it the wrong way, and that I suspect there are many different types of autism and many different triggers. An analogy would be, and I don't mean this in the negative way, but if you look at cancer, we say cancer, and there's a similarity between all types of cancers, but breast cancer is really different than lymphoma or other types of cancers, and the way you treat them is different, the causes is different, and I suspect it's kind of the same thing. There's lots of different types of autism, a lot of different causes, a lot of different treatments. And so, for some kids, maybe it's diet. For some kids, maybe it's the gene-environment interaction, plastics, heavy metals. Some kids, I'm open to the vaccine possibility. I don't think that was the case with Rowan, but I'm not going to tell a mother who's seen her child get vaccinated and just, become autistic a week later that there's nothing in that. I don't know, but I don't think we'll even begin to be able to know until we try to figure out different subtypes of autism and then look at it case by case. Right now, everyone's lumped together in a big bag, and we don't find anything, and it kind of means nothing. So I guess our stance is to be determined, but something's going on. I really don't think the rise in diagnoses is just because we're better at diagnosing. I think something is actually definitely going on.
Yeah, I did just say, even, it's interesting, somebody like Simon Baron-Cohen, who you saw there, who usually takes the stance of it's better diagnosis. Even he, in that unguarded moment, said it's probably a gene-environment interaction, and in a way, how could it not be? So, and I think these kids have these very vulnerable metabolisms. The question is it actually autism, or is it some form of sort of environmental toxicity that results in autism-like symptoms, that is effectively autism when you come to treat it behaviorally? I think that's perhaps quite likely. The good news with that is that anything that's biomedical is treatable biomedically. And the brain is a wonderfully plastic thing. It can reconstitute itself. We know this. But if you think about how toxic the environment is compared to 30 years ago, everyone in China did not have a cell phone 30 years ago. Now they do. Everyone in India did not get a plastic bag when they went to the store 15 years ago. I know, because I was there. They do now, So all that stuff is going into the soil, into the water, into everywhere, And even if you eat organic and you do all that stuff, we're all dealing with it now to some degree. And I think that you also see these parallel rises in things like autoimmune diseases, respiratory diseases, allergies, and so forth, all of which are showing the same kind of spike. So if it's not environmental to some degree, what is it?
Do you have any recommendations for doing some kind of spiritual trip, but in the United States, or something a little bit closer that could kind of like baby steps, start with something around here?
Well, I think the best thing you can do is get your kid out into nature as much as possible, and that's not in any way contradictory to doing the regular Western therapies. One of the things that we do out at the New Trails Centre is we will encourage people to bring their therapists. And we'll say, try your therapies that are familiar to the kid and to you, but how about doing them on the horse? Or how about doing them under the tree? Or how about doing them on the trampoline? Or in a natural environment where you stack the odds in the kid's favour because the kid isn't distracted by man-made noise, fluorescent lights, all that sort of thing.